Oh, hello everybody, and welcome back to Higher Density Living. I would have hit the intro, but I actually X'd out of it, so no going back from there. No big deal. But I want to hit at least probably like another 5 or 6 of the list of the Great 14 consciousness evolved humanoid beings in the current known universe that the Plejaren Federation have found, and this would be part 2 of the episode. So, Jason, can you kick us off with our next category of humanoid here, human life form?
Yeah, condicoids.
What the hell does condicoid mean?
Human life form, actually humanoid for all intents and purposes, but with the ability to move by levitation, like those ones who were seen sitting on the roof of the SS.
Samyase Silver Star Center.
Once.
Yeah. Hintersham and Rudy, Switzerland. So that's it's the residence of Billy Edward Obermeyer. So I don't understand what a condi is.
Levitating?
Yeah,
they were seen, or is it just him seeing it, or what is this? They were seen.
Probably members of the center.
You
know, but they say that through the growth in your consciousness, you can have levitation, teleplasty, teleportation, material kinesis, pyrokinesis, telekinesis, telepathy, and that's about it.
Well, I mean, that
so
would
pretty
make
much.
Sense.
Yeah, it just makes sense. Like, I'm tired of walking. I'm just going to float around everywhere.
Well, also when you begin to understand that you're not, we purposely come up with rules and regulations about gravity and what we on this planet. I mean, what if you had a planet where it was easy to, like in space, you can float around?
Well, what if somebody told you that you could control gravity from the day you were born?
Yes.
Someone said that you could levitate. You'd be thinking about it all day long until it probably happened, right?
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
If everything is a foundation of thought. Yeah, go ahead.
We've seen, I mean, in India and in different parts of the world, people have had they've been not just to levitate objects, but they've been able to levitate themselves.
Well, in our bodies have these non-polar electromagnetic fields. And so when you consciously direct that field, it's the same thing that gravity's doing, right? So if I push it against gravity, then I would essentially get to levitate.
Yeah, so the condicoids are basically Iron Man.
That's kind of cool without all the metal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and all the self-propelled rockets. They can.
So a condicoid is they're just humans, but they can levitate. So if you say a human that can walk around and float,
actually humanoid for all intents and purposes. So they look like us. They can just. So
if you see someone floating around, I'm going to be screaming on the street, condicoid.
Oh, that's hilarious. Next one is Serophoids.
These are great. This is the Eastern Island. This is old folklore from the Eastern Island heads. Eastern Island. What the hell are those things called? Those big heads.
Exactly like the Tangata Manu. See Easter Island in reference to cherubim and smaller eyes and Mott.
Yeah, the cherubim, right? So like big winged creatures. And if you look at the history of that island and things of the sort, these bird-like body features. So these things have wings. They're humans. They have extended necks. Sorry, Jason, I hate talking about you like this. I really do apologize. Right? And they have aerodynamic faces like me. I can just cut through the wind with my face. You know what I mean? And a beak-like mouth. It's not really beak-like, but
no, I don't think it's beak-like. But who was that? Wasn't there a superhero that had a eagle head or something?
Was it from He-Man? Did he roll with He-Man?
Yes, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
There was a beak-like, longer neck, aerodynamic face.
Yeah, what do birds eat? Worms? So what would a supersized bird eat?
Well, I mean, the worms are like what? Protein and
meal.
What else? Birds eat all kinds of shit though. They'll eat
like
berries.
A big nut. Yeah, well, what type? So they're eating blueberries and like big nuts.
It depends. They could be like acorns. A roadrunner. They eat everything, lizards and freaking. I had this was an interesting story because we have roadrunners here in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this pigeon in my backyard tree that made a nest.
Did a monkey grab it?
Oh, brother! I needed that monkey to come and grab it. So it's like a pigeon. It's like it's making noise all the time and stuff, and it's sitting on its nest. That a couple days later, in the morning time, I see 2 roadrunners in the front yard, and they had came from the backyard. Next day, I go out there, that pigeon's gone. So the pigeon's gone, so I just take a pole and push the nest out,
Mm-hmm.
to clean up the tree and make sure. And there was no eggs in there. So I'm pretty sure
Roadrunners got
those
to it.
those roadrunners, both of them went in there and grabbed those eggs, because they're like, I had a friend, he had what's those oh, not parrots, but they're smaller than a parrot, but they can talk. Oh, you know what I'm talking about.
Macaw?
No, they're not that big. They're kind of smaller, but it's like a parrot type thing.
Yeah.
They're really expensive. He had it on the backyard, and he came home and the bird feathers were everywhere and parts of his bird were laying around. But what had happened was a roadrunner knocked it off.
They're vicious.
And yeah, they knocked the cage down. They were pushing on the cage, knocked the cage down, and then busted the cage and ate the bird. So
That's insane. So, with chickens, if you have like a flock of chickens
mhm,
and like one of them starts to like bleed, like it gets
mhm,
cut, all the other chickens will start eating it. They can't, it becomes a
they're
feeding
ruthless.
frenzy. So what happens
So
with
I
the
wonder how these
Teroploids? Like, imagine a guy, you like walk around and you like fucking like cut your foot on a rock. And then all the Teroploids like turn their head at once. You know what I mean? They're like, they all leave what they're doing and they're like, can't stop themselves. And they just start beaking away at each other.
That's so awesome. They're probably highly evolved, whether their service itself or not, who knows?
Yeah.
But I would think any highly evolved. I mean, Atlantis was highly evolved,
Mm-hmm.
and they still had nuclear war. But you would think
Correct.
violence would not be a part of. You know what I mean?
I think it's just a natural element, right? It occurs. I mean, I
Competitive.
don't know. What do I know?
I mean, you have to have competition.
Yeah, it has to be there.
There has to be a striving.
There's got to be a catalyst, a striving. Thank you, Jason. What a good word.
That's evolution.
It's evolution. So Hydroids, this one's
Yes.
so it's not like a mermaid. It's legitimate like fish human. So it's like got a big thin head and like eyes on the side. They got fish-like bodies whose life-sustaining elements consist of a watery full submersion. And they can leave the environment for long or short periods of time, but they have to go back to the water. So it's not an amphibioid that could do either just by choice. These are waterborne, water live, but do still have the ability to leave for a brief amount of time. And who knows? That could be like a mermaid form. What do I know? A hydroid?
Yeah, I mean, if they have gender, you could have that easily.
Yeah, so it doesn't seem terribly difficult. This one's super cool. I think this one's pretty badass. The Thermoid. Jason, can you talk about the Thermoids?
Yeah, Thermoids are, in terms of shape, humanoid life forms with a human quality body whose life-sustaining climatic range is hot, scorching areas with what would be very extremely high temperatures compared to Earth. Comprehensions of what can be sustained by a human life form.
So these people are like living on like Io, like a volcanic moon. You know what I mean? It's hot as hell. It's like go down to the equator, but make it 10 times hotter, and then everybody's just having a grand old day hanging out in the heat, where we would just drop dead because it'd be too unbearable for it. It'd be sweltering. These Thermoids have the ability to live in such extreme temperature severity, especially at the hot end of the scale, not the cold one.
Yeah, and you think it would come into, they would have a different type of blood. And they wouldn't have like mercury blood or something, but you'd think because we've heard about the boiling blood and, it gets so hot. So, what would regulate the temperature? What would, cause them to be able to handle? I mean, you see like lizards and stuff like that in like the Mojave Desert and different areas like that, Gohobi Desert, some of these hottest places in the world.
But what about like their technology too, Jason? You couldn't have plastics. That should melt. You'd have to have like ceramics or like like very high melt point metals. And like, what does your food look like? If it's so fucking hot on your planet, what does your food look like? What's a food that
you
grows
have to deal with the gases?
Bacteria, Jason? Maybe they just eat bacteria. Yeah. Like a certain form of algae that grows on hot plumes or something on their planet, right? If it's that. What's a really hot place on Earth? Like Yellowstone. Okay, so you go to Yellowstone, what do you have? You have high salt
Acid.
concentrations, sulfuric acids. You have moderate pine barrens, but the food is very sparse. Maybe there's a couple berries on the ground. I'm thinking algae, because if you're water, say there was water and they're humanoids, so they have to have some sort of water intake. The water would have to have such like a high bacteria count that they're doing something with algae. That's probably their life sustaining food. That's my only thought.
Yeah, and also when you think of these people and you think of them as being, not just being able to handle high temperatures, but then to be able to, it's obviously not oxygen where they're at, So
No.
if you're sucking in sulfuric acid, they're humanoid. They say that they're humanoid, so it's not something that doesn't look like a human, but like the way they breathe, would they have lungs?
Is there maybe it's just an exchange through the skin?
Yes. Well, you know that we all know about that experimental aircraft. They actually flew. They had like 3 different tests. The Valkyrie.
XB-7 Valkyrie, correct.
Yeah, that supersonic bomber that they were trying to compete with Russia in.
Yeah.
They had problems with heat with having that many super high afterburner engines going on. I think there was like 8 or something like that in the back. So they invented this special metal that would, be able to dissipate heat with waffle, like technology, and it'd be very thin because it would just melt aluminum. So
and think about it, them moving fast too. Like, imagine if they have transportation.
Yeah,
it's going to have to be crazy resilient to so many things. It's interesting that if you grow up in certain climates, technology is driven essentially by that climate to start. Really cool, really cool stuff you can learn, but who knows what the metals are like on that planet or what have you, right?
So let's go to the opposite of this. This is interesting. I love this. The next one is Frigoroids.
Frigoroids. What did you just call me?
Frigoroid.
So if you think about the Inuit people in Alaska or northern Siberia, they are probably given enough time, genetically will continue to change to survive temperatures that are very low. Yes. But what we're talking about here with frigoroids, we are talking about habitats with temperatures that are far below 0.
These are White Walkers.
That's like White Walker. That's exactly right. This is like Game of Thrones beyond the wall frigoroids, And
yeah, how would you handle freezing temperatures? This is the kind of the opposite of what one is dissipating heat. One would have to have like thermodynamics. And the law of thermodynamics may not even play where they're at, but they would have to have something that would retain heat,
retain it, or generate a lot of it in the inside. But like flexibility, are you still as flexible if it still is cold? What do you eat in areas that are so frozen like that? What's food?
I bet mammals that have adapted, like those big tusks,
woolly mammoth.
They probably have I would guess creatures like that are real hardy, and then they would just eat those hunting.
Yeah, who knows? These things probably have a huge thermal barrier,
But at some point, Elon said, in our book, The White Sands Incident, when he talked about them able to produce their food on their spacecraft. Why would you hunt? Why would you? Eventually, at some point, if we make perfect food for our perfect bodies, it's going to get to that level.
I hope so. Then I don't have to spend any time. I don't have to spend time eating. I can just meditate all day long.
Yeah, it's going to be so simple. Whether it's in a pill form or a shake form or whatever, we're just going to whatever our favorite taste is or what we're in the mood for, it'll be like that, and we drink it and we're golden.
I'm itching for some pizza today, by the way. Just want to share that.
Well, you could do, what do you do? The cauliflower crust?
Yeah, that's typically what I got to do. But
Aeroids?
Aeroids.
This one's interesting too.
This one's kind of cool. Yeah, so the Aeroids. It's let me think of the movie. Do you remember Hellboy? Maybe even 1 or 2, when he has that German boss who's essentially this gas body being held together by some atmospheric suit. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So these Aeroids are essentially a humanoid life form with a human sort of body. Human sort of body. What does this thing look like? But they breathe poisonous gases, and their climatic sustaining conditions consist of various toxic gas atmospheres by Earth comprehensions. In terms of toxic, the second we were to land on their planet, guaranteed lethal, right? Nitrogen's off, there's no oxygen. We're just talking about straight poison. But there are a lot of things here on this Earth that, like those tube worms that sit on those sulfuric, hydrogen sulfuric vents that come out of the Earth's crust to like on the ocean floor. That's a highly toxic, hot, very caustic environment, but they thrive there, and there's a lot of other crustacean things. But these things are so it makes sense. If I live in an environment that has a toxic atmosphere, caustic, whatever you want to call it,
right,
and I'm breathing that, what I breathe is also going to be poisonous. That means if you were to see these person in our planet, on our atmosphere, they'd probably be wearing some sort of suit, which allows them to sustain that. Could you imagine carrying around your toxic atmosphere in space? Oh, we got to load this ship up with our caustic gas. We got to make sure that we're good to go. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's crazy, because then you're limited. Well, I mean, we are kind of the same thing. We have to pressurize ourselves and everything else.
Yeah,
but it's
I
funny.
Think we all have those limitations.
Yeah, it's funny how so you would think any extraterrestrial is going to, if they're maybe being millions of years evolved, once again they have figured this out, but you would think they would all have issues with this. I mean, Elon did. It took them a long time to adapt, right?
Yeah, so 2 years just to get used to our atmosphere and dealing with the biocontaminants that we have, but also gravity. Specific gravity of each planet is different. So if it's higher than what you're used to, it'll just crush your body internally unless your body is designed to handle those sorts of things.
Speaking, we're going right into the next one. What's talking
the next
about
one?
Right here is
what are you talking
acroids.
about?
In acroids, they have a human body, but their skin is covered by a fine layer of acid. It says, e.g., like the trilens. The acid would likely be strong because normal Earth human skin, they're talking about us again, is already at a pH range from 4.5 to 6.5. So an acroid skin is probably similar to our stomach acid, ranges from 1.5 to 3.5. So
oh my
like
gosh,
thin stomach acid on them,
on their whole body. That would just,
like?
I don't know, but it would cut through everything. And do they wear clothing? You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't want to imagine getting on a train with an acroid and then like sitting in that guy's chair.
Oh, afterwards, yeah,
your ass would be on fire.
Literally
melt the skin off my back. You know,
be like
what I mean?
Those ghost peppers I've had. That's what it did. Ass was on fire, melting shit.
You could take a steak and throw it right down on the chair the guy sat on and cook it right there.
I don't know how these people can genetically modify these peppers and make them.
I don't get it. Like the Reaper pepper and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I had that too. That was
Jason. If we can do it with peppers, we can do it with human beings. Just got to give it enough time.
It's almost to the point of where they're poison.
Yeah,
like you can hardly breathe when you eat it.
Yeah, it's stupid.
And then next one is we're almost done, guys. We got like 4 or 5 more.
We're gonna keep going until we finish this because it's really interesting to learn about it. So I would love to see one of these.
This explains Florida.
Yeah, this is Florida. These are Fluoroids. So they're life forms, human similarities, but they're diverse plant-like organisms. But their bodies aren't necessarily green or flowery, but they're a plant. So, do you remember the tree ents from like Lord of the Rings? Maybe their skin's made out of bark.
Oh, yes, that makes sense. Yes,
maybe they look like a monstera plant, or they look like a type of fungus or something. I don't know, but
I think you're onto something. Think about human form, and then they just have fungus all over them.
Cool. Like that doesn't seem unreasonable, does it? Like
no, not at all.
It's just a dude walking around. He's covered in Spanish moss.
These guys to me would be like eating mushrooms and.
Yeah, could you see them like with their big like vine fingers, like foraging mushrooms and shit out there?
Almost like a Groot.
Yeah, it's almost like a the Avatar folks, how they wrap their tails around the trees or stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
It's probably like the same thing, but they're just more plant-like bodies.
Yeah, which is cool because they probably, from all the ones that we're seeing, they seem to be the most interesting as far as probably coming into nature I would picture their world being very, very Avatar-like.
Yeah. Are you sure they don't look like those piranha looking plants from Super Mario? That come in a
Venus
green
flytrap.
tube. Yeah, like a walking Venus
That would be
flytrap.
scary. Yeah. Horror. That's where they're from. The
Yeah.
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. Where's your neck? So this is really interesting because this has a deep part of human history. You've seen it in Harry Potter. Um, it, I mean, Greek philosophy. It's come up in Babylonian culture. Everything of the sort are the Centroids. So a centaur. We've read about them. It's a big part of our mythical culture here on planet Earth. But these actual Minotaur, Centaur type mythology actually exist. There are these humans that are partly human and partly, equine bodies, so horse bodies. Could you imagine how fast they'd be running?
Oh, just incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
you would feel like they would probably be more of very tribal, almost like the tribal group on Game of Thrones. Speaking of the one where Jason Momoa was a part of.
Oh,
they were all about horses and
all about horses. So
very warrior type.
Yeah, who knows? Like, imagine some guys like, we should probably cross a human and a horse. Could you imagine that? Like,
but I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, I know Greek mythology has it, but there's a lot of human slash horse. And what's interesting is you go through this list as we are, and at every part of the world there is an example of this. So this shows me that these human-like extraterrestrials have visited Earth.
Why wouldn't they? They're obviously advanced, right? And I got a question for you, Jason. Who rides a centaur in their culture?
No one.
No one. Like, is it embarrassing if somebody rides you? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's a centaur on a centaur look like?
Cool.
Yeah. I'd be having a blast. I mean, if I had a spaceship and I could go around and check these places out, I'd be like, oh my God, are you kidding
you would
me?
want to go to this place, huh?
Oh, I have to go see it. This one's really interesting right here. The Phonoids.
Oh, these guys sound crazy.
Yeah. So you guys may have to look this up while we're describing this. So they're life forms with partly human and partly various ungulate bodies. I don't know what the heck.
What does that word mean?
I'm going to look it up right now, what ungulate means.
I'm thinking it's like moles and stuff.
No. Hoofed stuff like zebras, giraffes, buffalo, elk, ungulates. Large mammals with hooves. That's what an ungulate is. So these are part human, part large hoofed mammals, strengthened by a thick, horny covering.
Oh, that makes sense. If you could take the horn and then make that your whole skin.
Your whole skin. It's like
that's just minerals, right?
It's just minerals. So you got a mineralized skin. You're like a bulletproof human.
That's badass.
It's kind of cool. It's like a hard wall formed by a thick nail rolled around the tip of the toe. The weight is normally borne both the sole and the edge of the hoof. What the heck? So imagine how dense this creature would be, Jason. This thing is straight, walking, heavy hoofed mineral. When you trim hooves off of animals, it's like it's got some weight to it. It's palpable. And you're talking about a horn. You know how much a rack of like a deer horn weighs? Like the whole body is covered in that. By the way, it's standing on two legs. The hell out of here. That's like a humanoid zebra. Yeah, it's weird. It's a humanoid zebra with like bulletproof skin.
That's another like an equine. I wonder if they have known each other, if they wore, if they, have they crossbred. Do you think that they could probably the equine, anything, in that? But you haven't had elk. You haven't had elk and zebras or elk and horses.
No.
I mean,
so this one's cool. Do the next one because this describes what you look like. Yeah, this is you as a baby.
Two more, are in shape and weight very light. I was never light. Weight very light human life forms, equipped with feathered wings through which they can fly.
So the old
very light. It's funny. I wonder if they're like small
cherubim and stuff like that. They're probably super tiny. And we've
Yeah.
seen it in old religious texts and paintings, these
Hmm.
cherubs. And you see it in
Oh, everywhere.
Kabbalistic Judaism, all over the sorts. That's really interesting. And then here's our final one, the Serophoids. And they're another very light life form in weight, particularly human, and they're partly animal. But these ones are like equipped with feather wings, which can fly all the time. They're more animal than they are human, but they are humanoid.
That's so cool. It's like we have levitation, we have flying. It's just, to me, it just shows throughout the universe
Yeah.
evolutionary processes.
Yeah, it's just showing them adapting to their environments. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And here's the final note of this whole thing. The non-humanoid life forms are called Peregrine Humanoids, which means strange humanoids. And those are life forms that have a consciousness evolution, but they are not bipedal. Who knows what they are? They could be just straight lions. You know what I mean? That are telepathic. Like, what do I know? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's probably when I read this whole list. Do you remember the Chronicles of Narnia?
Yes, yes.
That's what this feels like.
Oh, I read that as a kid. It was so great. C.S.
Do
Lewis
you
is amazing.
do you think there's something in the collective consciousness why we resonate with that? Because that thing actually does exist. There is truth in it.
He was a mystic Christian.
No
So,
way, was he?
yeah, he was a mystic Christian. And during World War II, he did a radio show, so, and, uh, to me, it explained a lot, whether he received visions or whether he's a very interesting person. But I think it's just the hero's journey. I think part of it is, seeing the hero's journey played out.
Correct. Yeah,
There's another one, the one that blows me away, and I don't know if you've ever read it. It's called Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan.
Oh, that's old school book. That's like a crowd favorite.
Yeah, but like every town he journeys into, there's like something happens to him, but that something happened is an allegory of, something else that, like it's just interesting to me too. And I haven't read it since I was a teenager, but it blown me away because it's like, how can somebody write, something so deep? You know what I mean?
They're connected, right? And so you have to be. He's just kind of tuned in with something of a deeper truth that could be shared through literary prose. That's all it is. He has the ability to speak about something that allows many people to connect for generations, and that's what allows that book to last. Because there are principles within Pilgrim's Progress that lasts. That's what's important.
Yes.
It is the allegories. It is the metaphors. It's the things that bring it back to the human element that people are like, I get it. And that still applies to me today, even though society has changed dramatically.
Just last question, and I know we have to go, but why do you think we're so, like you had said earlier, why do you think we're so drawn to that?
I think because
our movies are that way.
Well, I think about this, Jason. Why do people go to therapists? There's not really, they don't typically have that outlet socially or in their relationships to talk about things that go on within their minds. But the movies can speak about it because everyone's fine. You can show that sort of stuff in the movies. It's okay to be weird, right? It's okay to read a book and connect with that stuff. It's okay to nerd out at Comic-Con and be a part of that because they're deeper truths, ones that people don't naturally talk about, but there's a resonance to it. There's something that draws people in. They know that there's something there that they can actually align with at a much deeper level.
Do you think somebody that may be unconscious to a certain degree that this has the ability, and maybe on their genetically modified part, this is an innate part of our DNA, is that it helps us through creativity, art, or whatever you want to call it, develop self-awareness?
Yeah, I think that these are all forms of catalysts, whether strong or gentle, but they drive us to be creative. They drive us to strive. They force that sort of evolution in some way, shape, or form. Like if I'm really interested in the mythical world, something about that will give me some sort of allegory example that I can apply to my own life and really maybe help me learn a lesson, become more consciously evolved by looking to something in the past or something that supposedly isn't real. But it's all there. It's real in the fact that you thought about it. And if you apply it to your daily thought, the way you act, walk, talk, think, then that thing will drive you forward, whether you recognize it or not.
That's awesome.
Yeah, cool deal. Well, listen, everybody, thank you for joining us today on Higher Density Living. That is the end of the list with the 14 known humanoid species across our current universe. And if we have anything else interesting like that, we'll be sure to share it soon. But I think this is the hottest topic since sliced bread when it comes to alien genetics. So we will see you guys for our next episode.